Hey Jackal, let's take a look how to make a bar graph in DaVinci Resolve. And this template could look something like this one, or maybe even something like this one. It all depends what you want. Now let's get digital. So the template that I'll make will look something like this one. We'll have a name of something, two bars. This will be average, minimum, with the numbers, and we can have multiple entries. So in DaVinci Resolve, open the media pool, right click, make a new fusion composition, put this onto a timeline. You can also extend it if you want to make some animations. In my case, I won't be making any animations, so I can leave this to default at 5 seconds. Then select the fusion clip and go into the fusion page. So to make a bar graph, we need a background node. To change the color, we need a rectangle, connect it like so. Now in the rectangle, we will set the width to 1, we'll change the height to 0.05, and this could also be lower. Then we'll use a transfer node. With the transfer node, we'll be changing the pivot point, so this green X, and we'll change it to 0, so that when we change the size, this will change. But we have to uncheck the use size and aspect ratio, so we only change the X size. So this is what we can animate or adjust, and the max value will be 1. Now if we want to position this and scale it down, we could use a transfer node at the end, but for now let's just add the text node, connect it, and in the text we'll have some value, and we'll position this value to the right of this bar. Now currently we don't see it, so we could add the transfer node at the end and change the size. So we could change the positions in this way, but what I'll do, and this was added in DaVinci Resolve 18.5, which is the multimerge node. So shift space. To open the select tools, type in multi, select the multimerge node. Now we need another background node to connect it in the back, and this background node will be transparent. And now we can connect the output of the merge to the multimerge node. In the multimerge node, the last node that is connected to the multimerge will be displayed. In this case, this is merge 1. So we can now change the size and change the position. Now if the bar is still too big, we could go to the rectangle and adjust the height, maybe to 0.3. And what we also have to do is go to the text node and change the font. So the font has been changed. Let me change the position, so maybe 1.04, and I also want to change the color, maybe to this one. And the text can now also have the same color, so I'll simply click on the eye picker tool. So we have one bar done. We need the second one, so now I'll simply copy everything, Ctrl C and paste. I can now connect this one to here. You can connect as many nodes to the multimerge as you want. Now I will change the color of this one, and we have to change the position. That was done in the multimerge node. Now in this case, we have to copy the size, so 0.72. Change the value of this node. Also the center X position. I'll simply copy it and paste it. And now we have to change the center position. So the Y value will be maybe something like this. So the green line could be the average FPS. So this will be a lot longer than the bottom one, and we need to change how long the bottom one is. Now if the top bar is at 100%, it doesn't matter what this value will be. How do you know how much this bar has to fill up? Well, we'll have to take in two values. To do that, I'll simply use a custom tool. So shift space, custom tool, and currently I'll just use the number in 1 and number in 2. So I'll use the same value for the top one, and this will be the low value, and maybe this one will be at 100. So now we have to change the value of this text node. So right click, expression, this will be custom tool 1.number in 1, tool with 2 O's, not 2 L's. So this is now the value. If I change this value, you can see that it changes, but you have a bunch of decimals, and I'll show you how to fix that a bit later, especially if you want to have a bit more numbers than what you have available in the custom tool. So now this transform, this one will always be at 1. This will be always a max value, so we can leave it as such. Now the bottom one, this one has to fill in depending on the value of the two values. So we'll type in equals, and what we'll do is basically take the second number, this one, so number in 2, and you can see in the bottom left corner what you have to type in, so custom tool 1.number in 2, and I'll simply copy this, and then we'll divide it by custom tool 1 number in 1. So this is now the value that we got. If I change the value here, you can see that the graph will also change. And now we simply have to fix the text value of the bottom one. So right click, make an expression, and this will just be custom tool 1 number in 2. I will also change the color, so it's this one, and let me zoom in a little bit. I have to fix the position. Now if you want to change the position of this text, so it is here and has the same gap as this one, I'll show you how to do that. So in the text node, the first one, we'll go to the layout, and see here we have the center position as 1.04. So the 0.4 is the custom value that we need to position it to the right. So this is the gap. As for this value, in the text node, we'll have to go to the layout, and we have to position it to something like this. But to do that automatically, so that when we change this value in the custom tool, the position will also change, we'll have to make an expression. So I will put in equals here, so we get an expression. We can now simply take this value, so the transform 1-1 dot x size, this will be the x value, so transform 1-1 dot x size, and we have the position here, and now to fix it, we'll simply add the value that we need, which is 0.04. So now when we change the value in the custom tool, this number will also change. It has the same spacing, except it doesn't look as good because we have all of the decimals. As I mentioned, I'll show you how to fix this, and basically we won't be using the custom tool. But if you did want to use it, you could always go to the text node, and you could either use a floor function. This will round the value down. If I could type correctly, floor. So this rounds the values down, so you don't have any decimals. And you could also use the ceil function to round the values up. Now the way I've done it, if you use the custom tool, you can have up to 4 comparisons for one object. So if this was a GPU, you could have up to 4 GPUs. However, if you need more values, and I will just use the custom tool to show you this, you can right click, go to edit controls. We would put this to the controls page, so we have everything in the same page. So controls. If you wanted the value to be animatable, you would enable the animatable option. This would be a number. Now this control is a screw, so you can have this control, but if you want a slider, you will have this control. So I'll just use a slider, so the FPS range could go from 0 to 1000. This would be an integer value, so we only have whole values, no decimals, and the step would be 1. So now when I add this value, I have a new control. I didn't change the name, I should have changed the name to something else. but this value goes from 0 to 1000. Now what you can do at this point, so don't do this manually for every input that you want. You simply select the node and copy it, paste it in a text tool. I want to see the value for a new control, which is this. I would have to change the name and the value, so this would be something else. So this could be maybe average FPS 1. I will also change the link's name. So now this should be the same as the tool that I've copied. Let's paste it in. It is. And we also have the name changed. Now what I'll do is I'll simply copy this average FPS, make a new line and paste the second one. And I believe you do have to have a comma between these values. And this one will be FPS2. Now I'll simply copy this and paste it into DaVinci Resolve. And now I have two values, FPS1 and FPS2. So this would basically be one entry. Copy this, put a comma, and now we have the second entry, and make as many entries as you want. Simply add commas and change the values. And you also have to change the link's name because this is what actually is displayed in the nodes. So this is the final custom tool that we can use, but you can add this to any node. It doesn't have to be the custom tool. I just showed you on the custom tool. You could simply add this to the multimerge node if you wanted to, and you would add it at the bottom here. So now we have one comparison bar. Let me add another one. I'll just copy this. Actually, I'll just copy this. We'll now connect the background to the top transform and this one to the bottom one. Do the connections like so. We'll have to make the adjustments. So we need to make the center X adjustments and the size offset. So 0.72. Now the bottom one you don't see anything. What could be the issue? The number doesn't want to display. In any case, this is not the values that we want to use. I will now use these values. So let's go with something bigger. So we have these values. So you know what you have to type in. Simply hover over the values or the name and look at the bottom left. So in this case, custom tool 1-3, average FPS 1, and all of the other names. So as you can see, the value now changed, but the bar length didn't, which is exactly what we wanted. Now we also have to change the transforms. So this X size will now be custom tool 1-3 minimum FPS divided by the average FPS. And now this will apply to all of the other transforms as well. This one will not be the whole value because this one is the maximum value. So this one will also be equals, but this will be average FPS 2 divided by average FPS 1. Which is this, also good. Let's change the text to average FPS 2. And now in this case, we also have to change the layout position. So in this case, this will be transform 1-2, 1-2 dot X size plus 0.04, so we get some space. Now this bottom transform also has to be changed, and this will be FPS 2. So custom tool 1-3 minimum FPS 2 divided by the average FPS 2. Now we have some issues. So we see the bar at this point, and you do see it displayed here, so something is wrong with the text. So this will now be minimum FPS 2. So we get the value of the minimum FPS, which is 177, but this could be the issue because you don't have this transform. We don't have transform 1-2-1, which is not correct because the one that we need to use is 1-1-1. So the number value is now okay. The only thing that I need to do is adjust the Y position. If you hold Ctrl, you'll have a much easier time adjusting this. If you don't hold it, this just jumps up and down. So something like that. If you want to have some name in the front, you can also do that. Simply add a text node. So you can have something like this. Now let's just test it out if this works by changing the average FPS value. So those two values work. I still have to fix the bottom one, which is this one. And how can you change this value? The proportion is okay, but it doesn't change with this value. So if I pin this and go to the custom tool to change the values, as you can see the X size changes, this one changes, but the bottom one doesn't, which is what we want to achieve. And we'll simply take this value. So we have the transform 1-2.x size, and we'll take this value and simply multiply it with the value we get from this expression. So multiply transform 1-2.x size. But of course I have to do this in the correct node, not in this one. It has to be done in this one. So now when I change the max value, this one will always be at the max. The other components will change appropriately. And they will never be higher than the max value. So now we can use the same approach to add one more line. Let me just do that quickly. I'll copy this value, paste it, this one is 0.72. This one is FPS 3 and minimum FPS 3. And I think that should be it. Let me test. And now we have all of the values changing. Now you just need to add the lines of text for each graph that you want to represent. Also give it a nice title at the top and what the colors that you use represent. Now you could do all of this inside DaVinci Resolve, but you can also make the background image in another program and then simply have this template as an overlay. So you can simply change the values inside DaVinci Resolve and have the values proportionate. Now to make the macro, you would simply select all of the nodes, the ones that you use anyway. In this case, this custom tool is not used. Right click on one of them, go to macro, make one, select everything that you want to be able to change, save the file as a group, and in this case maybe we would put it to the generators. And if you don't have this, my templates was empty, so you have to make an edit folder and inside create generators, titles and effects. Now if you make a template in this way, it will be messy, so I have a video on how to fix messy templates and you should watch it at this point. And if you found this video helpful, you know what to do. I'm Simon, until next time jackals,
keep it digital.